Phil Bauer. I live in York, Pennsylvania, and I'm giving Jeremy Brown permission to use my image in this video for his purposes.
Thank you so much, Phil. What do you do?
Well, for the past 10 years, I've had a national outreach um, about the safe use of prescription drugs, uh, prescription drug abuse epidemic, and teaching people, trying to save lives.
And what led you to that profession?
Well, I never intended to do this. This wasn't my calling. I never thought I'd be doing this. What led me to this was a little over 10 years ago. Uh, my wife Cookie and I found our youngest son, Mark, dead in his bed a week before his high school graduation. Mark died from abusing prescription drugs. They weren't his, they weren't ours. They were somebody's. Um, but he died from a lethal mix of prescription painkillers and stimulants.
Um, what is your viewpoint on prescription drug use in America?
Well, prescription drug abuse has caused the biggest drug epidemic in our nation's history. And it has fueled now the crisis that we have in our country of heroin. We have a renewed heroin epidemic, uh, and it is directly as a result of young people, especially, starting with the abuse of prescription medication.
What is your viewpoint on stimulant drugs such as Adderall and Ritalin?
Well, they are so widely prescribed for ADD or ADHD, and unfortunately, uh, I don't know. I'm not saying that they're overprescribed, but it is dangerous. It is at a dangerous level. I especially hear about it in especially colleges and universities. And again, the abuse of prescription drugs is not only to get high, which it can be, but it's also to self-regulate and to self-medicate. And it is very dangerous. It is very addictive. I believe it is being overused. I believe they're being abused. And it's causing a crisis. I think, unfortunately, many parents don't understand the dangers of abusing medicine, and oftentimes will, at times, encourage the use of it. Uh, Young people, especially college students uh, and university students, uh, are competing for scholarships, they're competing for jobs, they're competing for grades. And, what these stimulants can do, Adderall, Ritalin, can keep people awake. Students have to cram. They stay up a lot. And there's the perception that these drugs can, in fact, help them do better in school, do better on tests, and in certain occasions, and on a very limited basis, it can help at times. But there is an absolute danger in this, and unfortunately, there's a danger in people using Adderall and Ritalin when they don't need it, and oftentimes college students, hey, let's face it, they'll mix it with other things too, other substances, and there may be drinking involved or other drugs involved, prescription or non-prescription, and it is causing a devastation, frankly.
Very, very true. What is your viewpoint on false diagnosing?
On false diagnosis, well, I think a lot of diagnosis, just by their nature, rely on what patients tell their physician. And unfortunately, in this day and age, with the internet and social media. It is not difficult to go to the internet for young people uh, and find out what symptoms they need to present to a physician in order to be prescribed one of these stimulants. And um, doctors don't always have the knowledge nor tools that they need to identify what is appropriate. Do they, in fact, uh, suffer from ADHD, or are they trying to get drugs for non-medical purposes?
Do you believe schools negatively influence drug use? In other words, do you believe schools indirectly promote the use of Adderall and Ritalin?
Well, I think ignorance absolutely promotes drug use. And I think, schools, faculty in schools, counselors, uh, people who are trying to guide our young people through the system don't always realize the dangers in the misuse of these drugs. They don't always realize the dangers in the misuse of these drugs. And they really need to be proactive, I believe, in stemming this crisis. I believe they need to um, identify patterns of behavior. I think they need to identify changes in behavior, which may lead them to conclusion that um, a student may be abusing these drugs or using these drugs inappropriately. They absolutely need to be part of the solution to this problem. They need to, at times, have parents intervene or include parents in the solution to this.
Do you think schools need to change, change a massive amount to better attack this problem?
Well, certainly schools, educators, and society in general need to change. They need to change their attitudes and perceptions. Um, Educators need to be educated on the dangers. This, when students or anyone takes Ritalin, Adderall, or any prescription drug for non-medical purposes, we need to treat it like what it is. It is drug abuse. It is not taking medicine. There are dangers involved in this. This is not the saying goes, this ain't your daddy's medicine. Medicine, when abused, is drug abuse, and we need to call it that. And not only do we need to call it that, we need to treat it like that. It is not okay, and it is not safe. It is causing all the issues that abusing street drugs will cause.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. Could you actually do one thing real quick? I wanted to put this in the video, but I was going to say it, but I think it would be much cooler if you say it. Can you say
DFTBA? Don't forget to be awesome.
yes?